Well, Carla Renata, welcome to Upfront. How are you?
Hey Ray, how you doing? Good to see you.
It is so good to finally have you on the show. We actually got a chance to meet last year at the One Chicago that took place in Chicago, where they had Chicago PD and Chicago Fire, and got a chance to meet you there. And so we've been doing these AFCA roundtable interviews, and I was like, you know what? I need to have Carla on the show because you've got an interesting background. Love
Ah,
your everything that you've been doing with your website, the Curvy Film Critic. And before we kind of get into the AFCA suggestions for TV, film, and documentary, let's talk a little bit about your background, because you've been on Broadway, you're a publicist, you're sort of a renaissance woman in this entertainment industry. So let's let our listeners know a little bit more about you.
well, as you mentioned, I'm Carla Renata, the Curvy Film Critic or the Curvy Critic, and I have a show over at Black Hollywood Live called the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. It comes on Sundays at 5 o'clock on YouTube, and you can also stream it via Spotify, Apple Music, and any place else that's streaming podcasts. I am a graduate of Howard University, where I have a degree in broadcast journalism and a minor in drama. The minor in drama took me to the Broadway stage. I've been in numerous Broadway shows or Broadway tours like The Lion King, Avenue Q, Smokey Joe's Cafe, so on and so forth. I am a Emmy nominated voiceover artist. I wrote a book called The Actor's Guide to Self-Marketing: How to Brand and Promote Your Unique Image. That's available on Amazon.com, and I'm an adjunct professor where I teach branding via the internet.
Wow, I love Avenue Q. That's one of my favorites. I love the what is it? The bad idea bears.
Yeah,
Love that. Love that.
everybody love them.
Yeah. So let's get into some of these suggestions, and I'm going to look at my list here that AFCA has been providing viewers and folks who are stuck in this. I call it the Corona storm, but we're stuck in this Corona storm. And these are titles of television shows, documentaries, and films that anyone who is in front of a television can partake in. There is, let's see, on Netflix, you have House of Cards, which is always a series I think that everyone just
I
once you
love
start,
that
yeah,
show.
once you start watching it, you can't
I
stop.
was obsessed.
There's also the story of God that is voiced and featuring one of my
Morgan
favorite actors,
Freeman.
Morgan Freeman. Yeah.
Yeah.
You also have, let's see, on Prime now, there's Undercover and Marshall, Les Miserables. Man, and I take it that's the Les Miserables.
That's not the musical though.
Okay, so it's not.
No, it's not the musical.
Okay,
It's a French film that takes place in the town that was written takes place in the town um, that Victor Hugo was born in, and
got
Victor Hugo is the author of Les Miserables.
got it.
So this is a very because I thought that too. Because when they when I got the invite to go to that screen, I'm like, "Ooh, I love that musical," and I went. I was like, I was like, "This is not Les Miserables. What is this?" But it was a really great film. It's done really well on the film festival circuit. So I'm glad that it's finally streaming so that people can see it. It's a urban tale in a French town that is not what you think about when you think about France.
Wow. One of the documentaries that is on Prime now is American Playboy, the Hugh Hefner story. Why do you think we're so fascinated with Hugh Hefner? And I have to say, I first learned about Hugh Hefner from the Coming to America movie, when Reverend Brown mentioned the Hugh Hefner on high. Right, it was a line from when he was at the I think it was the Miss Black America or whatever
Oh
that
my God, that
was with
pageant was
Arsenio. Yeah,
tragic.
yeah.
That was tragic.
And he mentioned the Hugh Hefner on high. Well, I didn't know who Hugh Hefner was, so I went to look him up. Like we were talking earlier, encyclopedia, going to the library to find out who this man was, and that's when I discovered who Hugh Hefner was. So why do you think that he is just one of those American figures that we've just been so fascinated with him?
I think for men, they're fascinated that he's able to pull so many honeys of all different shapes, sizes, races, creeds, and colors and live this like fantastical lifestyle of the ultimate playboy. I mean, whenever you saw photographs of him, he had a show on in the, I think it was the 60s called Playboy After Dark. And it was just him in his house, like in a den portion of his house, and entertainers like Sammy Davis Jr. would come and perform in the middle of his den.
Yeah.
It's just that is the fascination that Hugh Hefner literally was well liked and respected and revered from like the greatest entertainers of a caliber of Sammy Davis Jr. all the way to like some of the biggest presidents, some of the biggest political icons in the world. Everybody loved Hef. They just did. I
Yeah.
remember at one point, I think in the 90s, he even had a, I'm not sure if he had the reality show or if it was three bunnies that he was like really closely to. I
Yeah.
forget what the show name of the show was, but it was a reality show around these three bunnies. I was like, wow. And people watched it. They
Yeah.
watched it for season after season after season. They were obsessed, but they're just obsessed with that fantastical image of him, that he's able to live this really cool, rich life, that rich and that famous lifestyle with all these women. People are fascinated by that.
Absolutely. Speaking of rich and famous, there's a new series that is coming out on Netflix this weekend titled Hollywood. It comes from the brain of Ryan Murphy and all of those folks that work with him, as well as Janet Mock, who's serving as one of the writers and directors. We both got an opportunity to interview the stars from that series. And gotta say, I totally fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with the story. And so loved that these were African American characters that we've not seen on television in a very long time. So, what was your take on seeing those characters as well?
I was very moved by Hollywood. And I think the reason why I was moved is because, in addition to all the other things I listed, I'm also an actress and I recur on a sitcom a sitcom on NBC called
Also,
Superstore.
yeah.
So I um, understand the plight of Black people in Hollywood and how the powers that be look at us a certain way and don't even attempt in some instances to look beyond what the stereotypical or the norm is. You know, if you are someone like me, they want to put you in either the Monique box or the Halle Berry box. Like there's no middle ground. You're either Monique, Queen Latifah, or you know, somebody of girth, or you're Halle Berry. Like there's no middle, and I'm smack dab in the middle. I'm not Halle Berry, and I'm sure I'm not Queen Latifah. I have the grit and the comedic chops of those women, but I don't have the beauty of a Halle Berry. Like I'm all right. Like I ain't no
You look good.
scrub.
You look good. You look
I
good.
ain't no scrub now, but you know, so to see a series that Ryan Murphy has put together that ultimately shows what diversity in Hollywood could have possibly looked like if we hadn't had those roadblocks placed before us in the 40s is a very intriguing thing to watch. It was intriguing. It was entertaining. At one point, I actually shed a tear. I was like, oh no.
I shed a lot of tears.
Am I crying?
And it was crazy because this is the first series of 2020 that has even, and I'm not a crier, but there were certain scenes, and I don't, we don't want to give it away, but there were certain scenes
Right.
that just really grabbed you. And Ryan Murphy has a way of taking um, these moments in history and bringing them and making them more relevant now than they were possibly then. And it just hits you. I think for those of us that dream and have dreams of being and becoming someone someday can definitely relate to those stories. And just like you said, different scenes that just, I had to stop it because I had to catch myself and was like, oh my God, am I crying?
Yeah, I mean, it was real. It was like, oh, okay. But I applaud him for doing this. And I've said this whenever people have asked me, what this series is like. I'm like, there are going to be some people like myself that are living that life that are really it's going to resonate with them. And there are going to be some people that are just cynical. You know, there are going to be some people that watch that, and it's going to be one of those things that people are going to watch it and they're either going to love it or they're going to hate it.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a middle ground with this, I think. And I think if the story was dealing with anything other than this fantastical twist on diversity in Hollywood, I don't think there would be that strong of a reaction. But the fact remains that that is what the subject matter is, and I applaud Janet Mock for I applaud Ryan Murphy, first of all, for reaching out to Janet Mock and asking her to direct a couple of episodes. She directed 2 of the episodes, and it was great to see that, because oftentimes in situations like this, we don't have somebody that's Black, let alone a woman, you know, let alone somebody that's trans, directing this type of project. So it was great to see that he had enough common sense and enough foresight to reach out and make that happen, because it made a difference for the actors and their performances too.
Absolutely. So speaking of Hollywood, you're there. You're in LA. You've got boots on the ground. What is the landscape looking like right now in the midst of this COVID storm? You and I were talking offline that they had to shut Superstore down, and so you guys are sort of like in the midst of production, and everything was brought to a screeching halt. So how are things looking right now in terms of the studios, red carpets, things of that nature that are normal everyday occurrences that take place in Hollywood?
Yeah, the red carpet situation is a wrap. Like, I don't think they'll ever go back to a red carpet situation anytime soon, because it's just too many people. And and then you have people talking in microphones, going from one mic to the next, to the next, to the next. That's I'm sure that it will eventually get back to that, but it'll be a different version of it when it finally does return, if it returns. I think in terms of for reporters, junkets, they've taken those junkets and those round tables and they've moved them online virtually, like what we're doing here with Zoom. Everything is done via Zoom now. They're even doing virtual hospitality with Zoom. Like, they put you in a virtual hospitality room and then bring you out when they need you to do the interview. It's pure comedy. But everything is being done online, and I can't, and because the studios have taken such a hit, and I was saying this to some friends of mine yesterday, most of these studios have a fiscal year that begins and ends in different months depending on which studio it is, right? Like,
Right.
some people's fiscal year may end in April, some may end in September, some may end in January. Everybody's fiscal year ends in a different spot. So I'm sure that these studios had planned out their budgets for these fiscal years. And now that COVID-19 has kind of thrown a wrench into everything, people are having to relook at their budgets. Therefore, a lot of people have been furloughed. Disney shut down all of their parks. They shut down Disney World. They shut down Disneyland. They furloughed a good 40, they laid off 43,000 people, and then they furloughed even more people. I know 15 people personally that got furloughed. So, and that's Disney. And remember, Disney acquired Fox. So I'm sure some people that came over from Fox got furloughed as well, or lost their jobs as well. And that's the other thing. When we come out of this, these people that have been furloughed, are they going to be able to come back to their jobs making that same salary, or are they going to, be let go? Because not everybody that's furloughed is going to be able to come back. So there's that situation. There's the fact that studios are thinking how they're going to put content out now, because all of the movie theaters are closed. How is going to the movie theater going to be now? Are people going to be more eager to go to an iPick situation where, there's very limited seating in a theater? I think an iPick situation has maybe 12 seats in a theater, maybe.
Okay.
So are people going to be more eager to embark upon that situation as opposed to going to a Cinemax theater, or going to an AMC, or going to one of those big theaters that has, like, 300, 400 seats, where you can't control what somebody's doing to the left, right, behind, and in front of you? That all of those are real questions. It's so up in the air, but I feel like This was this whole situation was the universe's way of getting our attention, because everything was moving too fast. Everybody was moving too fast. I know for me personally, there were days I would get up at 6 in the morning and I wouldn't come back home until after midnight. And that would go on for several days at a time. So I think this was the universe's way of getting our attention, saying, hey, look at where you are. Let's take stock of what your life is right now. And if you have something that you need to get in order, I suggest you take that time to do that right now, because we won't ever have this kind of time again. So I feel like it's is uncomfortable and as annoying and as inconvenient as all of this may seem to some people, is also a gift of time. Time with yourself, time with your loved ones, time with people that you can't remember the last time you even had a conversation with them. You know, time to change up your eating habits, time to exercise because you say you don't have time. You know, DJ Nice is rocking it out every day.
Hey.
You know, Debbie Allen is having dance class 3 days a week.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? It's just a very, and I feel, and which brings me to that. Like, we were talking off camera about musicians and Broadway and dance classes and, you know, places like the Hollywood Bowl. What's going to happen with all of these venues? It's going to be so disheartening to see how it's going to move forward. And with the film festivals, I think YouTube announced earlier this week or maybe yesterday that they were going to take all of the selections from, I think all of the selections from South by Southwest are available on Amazon Prime right now through May 6th. But then they're going to do the same thing with Toronto, possibly. They're going to do the same thing with Sundance and a couple of other festivals that either have been canceled already or had like a half of a festival and had to shut down because of the virus. And TCM was the first one to do it. They did the TCM Stay at Home Festival edition. And this is the thing that's challenging about trying a film festival at home. Mm. You're at home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you're at a film festival, your sole focus is going from screening to screening to screening to networking opportunity to party to this to that, right? To symposium, whatever, workshop, whatever. Exactly. That's what your sole focus is when you are at a film festival. If you're film festivaling at home, you're at home. Yeah. So you can easily be distracted. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go about scheduling it out, because people, I think the first day or two of it, people will be all in, and then they'll be like, yeah, I'm done. And they'll be off to something else because their attention span is spent. They're off to the next.
Yeah. Well, Carla, thank you so much for being a guest today on Upfront, and so excited that we had this opportunity to talk with you and to share this good information, these amazing shows and films and documentaries that are on all of these different platforms. And again, let our audience know where they can follow you and check you out.
Of course. You can find me across all social media platforms at The Curvy Critic. You can find me over at Black Hollywood Live on YouTube on Sundays at 5 o'clock Pacific time, at The Curvy Critic with Carla Renata on Black Hollywood Live, Black Hollywood Live, Black Hollywood Live. You can also catch me if you're streaming Superstore right now. You can catch me in seasons 2 through 4 of Superstore. 2 through 5 of Superstore, because we got renewed for season 6, but we don't know what that's gonna look like. And you can catch my book on Amazon Prime, The Actor's Guide to Self-Marketing, How to Brand and Promote Your Unique Image. You can grab that over there.
All right. Well, Carla, again, thank you so much, and continued blessings for the rest of 2020. I'll be seeing you in more of these AAFCA roundtable interviews, so we'll see you then.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right.